Katrina, welcome back.
Thanks, Brandon. It's great to be back.
Well, you have some really exciting stuff going on. Now, it's been a while since we talked about Water Ledger. For any of our new viewers, can you explain the platform and how it uses Hedera?
Great. So Water Ledger is a programmable platform for water rights, whereby we use Hedera to create tokens. We emit tokens, transfer those tokens into digital wallets, and then we use rules and all that sort of things to automate the complexity of regulation. So ultimately, there's three parts to Water Ledger. There's the water rights, the water allocations, and then the water trading.
So now you're finally hitting the market. I would like to go in a little bit deeper to exactly how you're leveraging Hedera and why that's integral to what you're doing. Can you touch a little bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. Look, we've for I know you probably have some new viewers, but for the viewers that have known me or the ecosystem that know me, we actually started in 2016. And obviously way back then it was only Bitcoin, which we did actually start with. And then we moved to Ethereum before CryptoKitties and all that sort of stuff. But once we started to really, because we had to do a lot of feasibility studies, proof of concepts, pilots, and all that sort of stuff. But when we started to get to the point where we knew we had a pathway to market, we had to reassess our infrastructure choices. And the reason why is because we were getting a little bit of pushback from our customers at that time with regard to the energy issues around the proof of stake or the proof of work, which we know is being all solved and all that sort of stuff. So we started to look at Hedera. We saw some of our friends like Miko, Katrina Dow is an old friend of mine from way back. She's also an Aussie. So we started to ask her questions about it, and also Rob Allen. Alan and I go way back when we were on the board of the Australian Digital Commerce Association. So it started to make sense from the lens of that environmental, I guess, qualifications of Hedera. And also the tech has come a long way. We don't have to build everything ourselves anymore. So it started to make sense for us. So we started to look at Hedera. We did a whole lot of analysis. And then in March 2022, we actually made the announcements that we'd actually come across to Hedera and we were going to redevelop Water Ledger on the Hedera distributed network.
So, as I mentioned, now you're bringing that product to market. We're actually seeing it impact the Hedera network. Can you tell us how the launch has gone so far?
Oh my goodness. We actually prepared for it like significantly because for the last 18 months, we've been working with a water operator here in Southeast Queensland. I'm in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. So we've been working with a bulk water operator that allocates 600,000 megalitres of water to 1,200 farmers. And they do that all on Excel, which is pretty normal because we see this quite a lot where all these really important asset classes are generally accounted for on Excel, which is not very good at all from a trust perspective. So once we actually knew that we got to the point where, because we've been working on testnet for the last 18 months. So when we knew that we were ready to deploy across to mainnet, we reached out to our friends at Avision and deployed Water Ledger using the Managed Guardian service. And that was just huge relief for us because it is complicated when you want to deploy, particularly when you're minting 3 trillion tokens. Going to Ledger over 8,000 events in one hit and create 1,100 digital wallets all in one hit. So we had to plan it out really carefully, and working with the Managed Guardian service was a great team, and Daniel and his team were brilliant to help us through that. So once we set everything up and we moved everything over, then we watched the Ledger all of our work across 6 hours. It took 6 hours to get all of that across. But once it actually was done, we were watching it on Hashscan, LedgerWorks, Dragonglass. We were watching it all over the place. By the end of the time that it actually finished, it cost us, because I'm Australian, so it cost us, because we hold treasury, it cost us $70 AUD in HBAR tokens to do that entire deployment, which is huge. Like to go straight on to layer one, for 70 AUD of HBAR was quite phenomenal.
So, who are the buyers? Who are the sellers? How do these markets work?
Yeah, so basically it has to start with a water authority. Water is a publicly shared asset and it's highly regulated, and not everybody can take water. You have to have a right through an authority to take water, particularly if you're a farmer, a miner, industry. Yeah, sure, we as householders, we can just turn on our tap and we get water from the water utility. But for farmers and industry, they have to have a right to take water, because the most important thing is that the catchment where we take our water is never breached in terms of its sustainable yield. So there's a whole lot of hydrology and all that sort of stuff to work out how much water we can actually take from a catchment that's not going to breach its environmental life, so to speak. So you have to have a right, so that's called an entitlement. And when you have your entitlement, you get a water allocation at the start of the water year, depending on the weather. If you're in drought, you're probably not going to get a water allocation. And if you don't get a water allocation, then you turn to the water markets, in the temporary markets, to find water, because water is now scarce. And that's what the role of the water market is. Australia is the most mature water market in the world. There's a lot of people get a little bit nervous around water markets, because all of a sudden you're putting a price on water. But we need to put a price on water so we understand its value. And if we understand its value, then we can put it on our balance sheet to ensure that we actually manage it sustainably and equitably.
Yeah, free markets are really important to determining the value of things across the board, but of course that includes water. So I want to ask you personally, why did you want to get involved with this space?
Look, it wasn't something that we, in terms of blockchain, oh gosh, it's always like a moment in time. You know how you have that moment in time when you have a serendipitous moment? So back in 2015, I had just finished working in a charity. I worked in government, non-profit sector. And one of the things that irked me about working in a charity is that our donors couldn't actually have any transparency around where the money was going. And we probably weren't doing the right thing, because it was basically going to operations rather to public good stuff. So I found a book in my children's library about Bitcoin in 2015. And at that time, I was listening about Craig Wright being chased by the Australian Taxation Office. And we all know who Craig Wright is. So I found a book and I read it, and it hurt my head. And then I found I found a piece that talked about charities and where this technology would actually revolutionize that transparency and trust between donors and charity organizations. And that's when I knew I'd found my tech. And then there was moments of serendipity, and it wasn't until I went to my first Bitcoin meetup that was when I went down the pathway. And then Civic Ledger was founded in 2016. Once we established Civic Ledger, we did a few POCs, and then we had an opportunity to work with the Australian government on how to actually bring transparency and trust into the Australian water markets. And that's in 2017 we started our journey. So it's now been 7 years.
It's an impressive journey. And I mean, Hedera hasn't even been around for that long. So
No.
The next thing that I noticed that post that Wes put out. I saw it was either $6 or $7 million worth of water rights were in this market. Where do you see this all going, in the years to come?
Look, that was really why I really wanted Wes to express this, is because particularly in the US markets, there's a lot of controversy around putting a price on water. Particularly, there's the NASDAQ of water veils indice, which people think that that's where the Wall Street guys are going to come in and start to, price farmers out of the market. That is not the case at all. It's really important that we understand the role of markets. But we actually, in the work we've done with Southeast Queensland, in the particular scheme that we've now tokenized, there was only 25 permanent trades. That means like I'm selling my house to you. So if you do a permanent trade, it means you're actually selling your right and your allocation and all the other issues to somebody else. So it's like selling your house. So when you sell your water, it's the market that determines its value, not the government. The government doesn't actually say what that price is. It's what the market says. And it's based on drought and scarcity and water and all that sort of stuff. So I wanted to emphasize that this tiny little scheme that we've worked with, it's big, but it's one of the lowest trading schemes in Queensland, that the value of water was $7.3 million just for 2,104 megalitres of water. Now, in the Murray-Darling Basin, farmers trade $6.1 billion worth of water every year. So this is only a drop. This is a tiny little drop in the ocean. So I wanted to sort of let everyone to understand that that if we understand the value of water in the context of this technology that we work with, then this is ultimately the origins of the tokenization of real world assets. One of the issues that we hear all the time now is that we can fractionalize real estate and we want to do bonds and all that sort of stuff. Well, the most important asset class on this planet that we need to tokenize is fresh water. Because once we understand how much we have, then we know how much we can use, how much we can share, so we can actually ensure that the environment and Indigenous and all that sort of stuff is sustainable for the longer term. So we just wanted to point that out, that we've done it, but we can actually do the entire planet now because we've done this. And as I said, if we actually solve the problem of water scarcity, that means that we can solve the problem of food security and climate change. And I guess that's what's been driving us for all these years.
Well, we appreciate everything you're doing. We appreciate you coming on today and telling us about it. And in the future, as you go along and continue your journey, we hope we can have you back. Thank you, Katrina.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brandon.
I'm now posting these interviews of Hedera builders independently to my channel. The community, influencers, and media outlets are free to use this content to spread the word on what's being built on Hedera. Once they're all uploaded, you'll be able to go to my channel and search for whatever topic or team you're interested in to find more information. Or you'll be able to get the most recent Hedera news by watching the latest HBAR Weekly Update. So check them out.